Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Yashuranandana Raja Janarantana Yashuranandana Raja Janarantana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Too big, Gopal, too big. Can't even breathe with those out. Too big. They have the smaller ones. Where's the smaller ones?
Well, they're all coming like this. Okay.
Too big.
Yes.
Plus, they take them out of the refrigerator and they're freezing cold in the middle of the winter, you know, like a separate austerity. Reading from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, Volume 6, chapter titled Chant Hare Krishna and Fight. So we read that part, and that's from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhavananda saying that verse begins, Tarava kim na jivanti. Do the trees not live? Do the bellows of the blacksmith not breathe? All around us do the beasts not eat and discharge semen. Men who are like dogs, hogs, camels, and asses praise those men who never listen to the transcendental pastime of Lord Sri Krishna, the deliverer from evils. After Bhavananda finished reading the long purport, Srila Prabhupada began his lecture. He explained how the spirit soul changes bodies life after life, but admitted that people are generally unaware of this simple fact. But at least in India, he said, this condition should now be changed. Not everyone would be able to realize this spiritual knowledge, but at least there should be an ideal institution. And that, he said, was the purpose of the Krishna conscious movement, to create ideal brahmanas. Where's Arjunananda? To create ideal brahmanas who could guide and instruct the rest of society. Not from so-called politicians, said Srila Prabhupada. This is Indian civilization. Formerly, even Lord Ramchandra, who was the king, is God himself. Still, he used to consult the learned brahmanas, sages, and saintly persons for governmental duties. The divisions of society must be there. There are so many things to be done in the Krishna conscious movement. Don't take it that it is simply chanting Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna chanting is the prime factor, because if you chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, then gradually everything will be clear in your mind. Prabhupada told how he had overcome opposition in America and how the people there were taking Krishna consciousness seriously. When he stated his plan for a combination of American money and Indian culture, the people applauded. The real thing is knowledge, Srila Prabhupada concluded. So don't keep this knowledge locked up in your books, but spread it. My only request is that the leaders of India should now come forward and join this movement and take this advantage of doing good to the whole world. Thank you very much. The audience's applause swelled into a sustained ovation. Prabhupada's voice had been weak, his body almost motionless, but he had projected a power that had overcome those bodily limitations. His presence was, in fact, more commanding than ever. His energy was obviously the pure energy of the soul, transcendental to the bodily condition. Giriraj Swami called for questions, inviting people to come up and speak into a microphone in front of the stage. Woman, isn't spiritual life very taxing? Prabhupada, do you think that you are not being taxed? Why should you not be taxed for the proper gain? You're being taxed for so many nonsense things. Why not be taxed for the proper things? That is intelligence. As Prabhupada answered the questions, he became more and more forceful. Although he remained very still, not even moving his hand. His answers were not as lengthy as usual. He seemed to be saving his energy, but he delivered each answer with intense emphasis and conviction. A well-dressed, middle-aged Indian man stepped forward and asked, Swamiji, what is the importance of health and life? And how do you advise people to maintain health? And how does it connect to your mission? Srila Prabhupada, what is health? First of all, you have to understand that however healthy you may be, you must die. So what problem will you have solved? Janma mrityu jara vyadi dukkha doshanu darshanam. Krishna says, it is not my manufacturing. Although you may try to remain very healthy, nature's law is that you must die. How can you help yourself? After all, you have to meet death. So long as you have got this material body, there is no question of health. You must suffer. You may be a very great scientist, but nature's law must act. Prakrite kriyamanani. Foolish persons bewildered by false egotism think, I am improving my health. I am improving this. He is improving nothing. He's completely under the clutches of material nature. He can't act anything independently. That is the law of nature. Another man asked if Prabhupada could solve political problems with this religious basis. Yes, Prabhupada replied. All problems will be solved when we become Krishna conscious. What is the simple solution to understand the soul? Another man asked. I would like to understand the soul. This is very simple, Srila Prabhupada replied, but you are educated so foolishly that you cannot understand. Srila Prabhupada explained briefly that the body is made of material elements, that there is a superior element. Anyone can understand, he said. Everything is explained in the Bhagavad Gita, but people are not serious to understand. The morning after the first Pandal lecture, Srila Prabhupada sat with Kartikeya Mahadevya, Tamal Krishna Goswami, and Bhavananda Goswami. Ever since Prabhupada's extreme weakness of health had occurred in Mayapur, he would often sit for hours alone and chant. When he spoke, his voice was often hoarse or faint, but otherwise his conversation was, as it had always been, completely Krishna conscious. In fact, Srila Prabhupada was becoming increasingly strong in his uncompromising criticism of all the mudhas who do not accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He was condemning materialistic civilization, calling it a dog civilization or an anthill civilization. A dog runs on 4 legs and a human being runs on 4 wheels. But if he doesn't know the meaning of life, then he is no better than a dog. Both humans and ants build tall edifices. But if a man doesn't know the soul and of Krishna, then despite his proud skyscrapers, his civilization is no more than a glorified anthill. If more visitors come, Prabhupada said, I shall describe all this anthill civilization. Health? Nonsense. What health? He'll be kicked out immediately. Srila Prabhupada was referring to the man's question from the Pandal. Who is healthy if he is going to die? Prabhupada asked. I am so healthy that I am going to die tomorrow. This is their health. Almost every one of those questions, said Tamal Krishna Goswami, was about the body. Prabhupada replied, Krishna says, Nahanyate hanyamani shurire. That is healthy. When you do not die, although the body is destroyed, that is healthy life. What is this healthy life? The body is finished and everything. Actually, everything is not finished, but people are kept in that ignorance. They think that the body is finished and then everything is finished. But that is not the fact. Krishna very clearly said, Najayate mriyate vakadachan. If you do not question it, how is it possible? But that is the most important question. Prabhupada mentioned that despite the United Nations World Health Organization, still everyone was going to die. Where is health, he asked. Such foolish things are going on all over the world. So organize, introduce reality to them and spread it, slow but sure. So we shouldn't be impatient and compromised, said Tamal Krishna Goswami, just to be popular. There's no question of becoming impatient, said Srila Prabhupada. You have got a diamond. If there's no buyer of the diamond, that does not mean that you have to throw it away. You must know that here is a diamond. If I want it, I must pay the proper price. That I want to establish. Why India's culture should be lost in this way? I am not a cheap patriot. I want to give Indian culture to the whole world. I am not going to cheat people, taking Bhagavad Gita and speaking all nonsense. I want to present Bhagavad Gita as it is. That is my mission. Why should I cheat you? Srila Prabhupada ki. Speaking about cheating, can I have the first canto? Srimad Bhagavatam, Volume 1. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, 9th Chapter, text number 8. Chapter titled, Brahma's Prayers for Creative Energy. Shutrit Tridat Tubir Imamuhor Ardimana. Shutrit Tridat Tubir Imamuhor Ardimana. Shutri Tridat Tubir Imamuhor Ardimana. Shitoshnavata Varsha Itare Tarachcha. Shitoshnavata Varsha Itare Tarachcha. Kamagnina Chutarusha Chasudura Bharena. Kamagnina Chutarusha Chasudura Bharena. Sampashito Mana Urukramasi Dateme. Sampashito Mana Urukramasi Dateme. Shutri Tridatu Biri Mamur Ardhyamana. Shitoshnavata Varashari Tare Tarachcha. Kamagnina Chutarusha Chasudur Bharena. Sampashyato Mana Urukramasi Dateme. Please chant. Shutrit Vidatu Bre Mamur Ardhyamana. Shitoshnavata Varashari Tare Tarachcha. Kamagnina Chutarusha Chasudur Bharena. Shutriti Datube Mamur Ardimana. Sitoshna Bhata Varashayitaret Rachcha. Kamar Ninachutarusacha Sudur Bharena. Sampashito Manurukramasi Teme. What did you mean? Shutrit Vidatu Birimamur Argyamana. Shitoshnabhata Sarasari Tireta Rachcha. Kamar Ninadu Chaturasya Sudavarena. Sampashito Manu Urukramasi Teme. Ladies? No. Shoot. Hunger. Trit. Thirst. Tridat to be. Three humors, namely mucus, bile, and wind. Hima. All of them. Muhu. Always are Dimana, perplexed, Shita, winter, Ushna, summer, Bata, wind, Barasai, by rains, Itara, Itarat, and many other disturbances. Cha, also, Kama Agnina, by strong sex urges. Achutarusa, indefatigable anger, indefatigable anger. Cha, also, Sudurbarena, most unbearable. Sampasyata, so observing. Manak, mind. Urukrama, O great actor, see the day becomes despondent. May, my. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. O great actor, my Lord, all these poor creatures are constantly perplexed by hunger, thirst, severe cold, secretion and bile, attacked by coughing winter, blasting summer, rains, and many other disturbing elements, and overwhelmed by strong sex urges and indefatigable anger. I take pity on them, and I am very much aggrieved for them. Please repeat. O great actor, my Lord, all these poor creatures are constantly perplexed by hunger, thirst, severe cold, secretion and bile, attacked by coughing winter, blasting summer, rains and many other disturbing elements, and overwhelmed by strong sex urges and indefatigable anger. I take pity on them, and I am very much aggrieved for them. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. A pure devotee of the Lord, like Brahma, and persons in his disciplic succession, are always unhappy to see the perplexities of the conditioned souls who are suffering the onslaughts of the threefold miseries which pertain to the body and mind, to the disturbances of material nature, and to many other such material disadvantages. Not knowing adequate measures for relieving such difficulties, suffering persons sometimes pose themselves as leaders of the people, and the unfortunate followers are put into further disadvantages under such so-called leadership. This is like a blind man's leading another blind man to fall into a ditch. Therefore, unless the devotees of the Lord take pity on them and teach them the right path, their lives are hopeless failures. The devotees of the Lord who voluntarily take the responsibility of raising the foolish materialistic sense enjoyers are as confidential to the Lord as Lord Brahma. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Mrityamane Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Mangayate Garam Yati Pitamaham Vande Shri Gurum Diratanam. This Prabhupada makes a few points aside from these obvious perplexities described as essentially our everyday life, because this is what people face on a regular basis. This is not some unusual circumstances like war. War brings it out. It's like now everybody is sensitive to the fact that, we have situations in the world where people now are on a completely different set of material sufferings. But they're in a very, how can you say, obvious state. There's nothing like a good war to make you realize that this material world is not a place for any gentleman. But it shouldn't take such a conflagration, as Prabhupada says, in order to bring us to this point of realization. An intelligent man doesn't require to have to experience that. It says first-class intelligence means first by hearing. First by hearing. So this is where reading in the first canon of Srimad Bhagavatam, and this is related to Prabhupada's purport to text 4 of this particular chapter. He makes mention, very interestingly. He goes that, how does he say that? He makes mention of the point of illusion, that they're simply wasting their time in material speculation, but he uses a particular combination of words, which we see also in the first canto. So I wanted to read that as well. Let's see if we can find it quickly. Yes. It says, impersonalists simply waste their time in mundane mental speculations because they're addicted more to false arguments than to reality. So these false arguments are simply a diversion, just like politics in general is simply a diversion. Keep people off balance from pursuing the science of self-realization. And that's described here. Dharma project kaita vocha paramo nirma charanam statam. Vedyam vastava matra vastu shivadam tapatrayon mulanam. Srimad Bhagavate Mahamune Krite Kim Va Parar Ishvaraha. Sadhyo Hriday Yavarudite Tra Kritibi Susushibi Tachana. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated. This Bhagavad Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within the heart. So this is essentially the condensed reason that the Krishna conscious movement exists, to present reality distinguished from illusion. You know, why do we speak on this basis to those who are coming? With regards, it may seem simplistic to us now, but that in one sense is an indication of how far we've come from our previous material misconceptions. You know, we think that if I'm telling this person he's not his body, or that's a very low realization. But that is actually the first realization required for that, in order to go beyond and enter into the mystery of the science of self-realization. Because if he doesn't dispel that one illusion, then talking to him, discussing with him, doing anything with that person is basically a waste of time. You're just wasting your effort. So this is, of course, something that everyone here already understands. But it's important that we somehow develop the ability to convey that message in simple language to those who are coming and seeking knowledge, just as it was done for us. It was the expertise of the devotees that we met that somehow awakened that inclination to go beyond the superficial, you know, to separate the curtain of Maya, to pull it back. You know, nowadays it's, they try this constant churning of material, how can you say, political affairs, puts people at a great disadvantage because they can't think of anything else. You try to tell them something and they're thinking, oh no, but the war is more important, or the pandemic is more important, or so many things are more important. But that's the definition of illusion. Meant simply to, and Maya is very expert. There's no one more expert at this than Maya. You know, magicians sometimes will create an illusion, you know, with, what do they say, the term smoke and mirrors. It's a very famous term, smoke and mirrors. And that's all it is. It's called sleight of hand. You know, they get you distracted by something else, and then you don't see how he was able to manipulate that particular, whatever it was, in order to appear or disappear. So in this way, people are glued to constant 24 hours news cycles. And this bombardment of illusion will bewilder anyone. It doesn't matter who you are. It will bewilder anyone. And this is the problem. You know, just like this whole so-called pandemic. For 2 years, it was nothing but pandemic, pandemic, pandemic. And then what happened? Where did it go? All of a sudden, it's gone. Not even a mention on the news. Now it's something else. Now it's a war. Why? An intelligent person has to think about these things. He has to know that they're all sleight of hand. This is all illusion. But it should not deter us, which is why we don't consider such things to be important enough, like Prabhupada said, to stop the mission, to stop preaching. Nothing is important enough, nothing. You know, sometimes we, you know, Prabhupada just said to this person in the pandal, what is health? You're going to die. What is the question of health? Yes, we should remain as healthy as necessary and not more in order to execute the mission of the spiritual master. There's no need to dwell on, the constant upkeep of the material body. No, it's a simple thing, actually. What did Prabhupada say? Yoga Systems tape, that nice series back in the early days where Prabhupada was recording, and it became a series of cassette tapes. And we used to buy them in the store. I remember before the internet, before anything, you used to have to go to the temple. You had to go to the temple. But then you could take the temple home with you in the form of cassette tapes, Prabhupada's lectures. Of course, you also had Prabhupada's books, but the lectures were amazing. When you listen to Srila Prabhupada explain these things, it was like multiple levels of realization occurring simultaneously. You didn't know, how is it possible that someone could possess so much knowledge? It was inconceivable. But this was the awakening, you could say. That there was the specific characteristic and quality of the spiritual master, and he knows how to specifically dispel the illusion of the potential disciple. There's the specific characteristic. He can deliver him by this clear transmission of transcendental knowledge. But as it says here, one has to be submissive. It cannot be done in a challenging way. And we see from our daily experience that when we find people who are challenging, their minds are closed. They already have some misconception, preconception, and you can't get into it. You can't penetrate it very easily. And then you have to wait for one of those 4 specific episodes of distress or, whatever, seekers of knowledge, seekers of wealth, but typically distress. And then you can kind of like, okay, obviously you're not in control. So maybe it's time to consider a different point of view. And then, and we're not waiting, we're not trying to exploit others in that regard, or their suffering. But the devotees are experts, just like the physician. The physician doesn't go out of his office and try to diagnose every single person on the street. It's not his job. But when a person comes to him and asks, I've got some symptoms, what should I do? That's when the process begins of healing. So there has to be some approach. And of course, we take it a little bit more proactively. We invite people in, we go out on the street and we try to present to them, something which will prompt that reaction. We want to, like we used to do, a very interesting example. My godbrother Hansarupa, he was, when we first came here, he was the Bhakti leader. Among other things, we did all the construction, but he was also the Bhakti leader. And Sankirtan, we started a preaching center in Hartford. We did the renovation, and that became a satellite. It was actually done when we were still on 55th Street. And then it changed hands. But the point is, when we were in New York on an interim temple on 7th Avenue, we were thinking how to do Sankirtan. Some devotees, those books are fine, but he came up with an idea, and I don't know what prompted it exactly. But we started doing blood pressure tables. Nobody ever heard of that, huh? Blood pressure tables. When you put the cuff around a person, you pump it up, and you tell them, "Oh, you have high blood pressure. You need to go on a diet." Now we would distribute higher tastes, and we would give them a vegetarian cookbook, invite them to the Sunday feast or to the temple. So that it became very popular. Many devotees would go out in white lab coats with a stethoscope. It's just another adaptation of Sankirtan. So we had blood pressure Sankirtan. So this was, and it went on for some time. Many devotees found it very easy to be in that situation. You People would come right over to the tables, free blood pressure. They didn't have the machines in the drugstores that you can go in now and put your arm in the cup and sit there. They didn't exist. And so it was unique in that sense. It was very, how can you say, innovative. And that we distributed tons of higher taste magazine through blood pressure. Maybe we should tell the Sankirtan devotees in the subway to have a little table on the side. Everybody's experiencing hypertension. Get a big display of higher taste and just, because you don't require a license. Nobody ever checked this. Nobody ever said, are you a registered nurse or anything? No, because it's not even required. Anybody can take blood pressure. They sell the machines in the drugstore. Anyway, it's just an example that, how devotees prompt people to come, and everyone is suffering in the material world. It's just that they don't acknowledge it. This is just another way to introduce them to the fact that, hey, you've got high blood pressure. You should consider maybe, going on a diet or stop smoking, stop drinking, stop whatever. Do you have your keys and everything for their vehicle? You're going to take the Mazda? Okay. I want to interrupt the class to wish a safe journey for our dear Bipin Bihari Prabhu, so that he may reach the holy Dham safely and come back quickly without being overweight. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. So, and at one time, my Garva, the Toshan Krishna Prabhu, he comes from a family of doctors. So he was interested, and he may have already been pursuing, the pre-med. Pre-med is nothing but a bio-heavy, curriculum where you go through all this A&P, anatomy and physiology and whatnot. So he asked Srila Prabhupada if he should continue his education and become a doctor. And Prabhupada said, we have enough doctors. He said, we need doctors of the soul. There are enough doctors in the material world, but there are not many doctors of the soul. So that also describes what the devotees does. He's the doctor of the soul. He tells you how to clean your soul, how to rehabilitate, revitalize, recondition, renew, all these buzzwords that you see in all the advertisements now, how to, change your whatever by, entering it to another, stage of paying money to somebody, if it's telling them how you feel. This is the society of the cheaters and the cheated. Everyone's looking to take, because everyone knows they're suffering some way or another, but they don't acknowledge the root cause of that suffering, the fact that they have a material body. And so they try to apply some temporary, remedy. And of course, it doesn't work. It cannot work. It doesn't matter how healthy you think you are. In a moment, some virus will escape from a biolab, and, this is what happens. But, this is just one example. We live in a world full of contamination. That's the nature. How is it Martiloka? What does that mean? A world of death. It means that death and disease are everywhere. Jamma, mrityu, jara, vyadi, dukkha, dosha, anudarshanam. It's everywhere. So how is it that you can't avoid it? A mask is not going to prevent it. Nothing can prevent it. If you're destined to become sick, you're going to get sick. That's it. Simple as that. We could say it a different way. What do they say in Hindi? Rake Krishna mare Krishna rake ke. Krishna wants to save you, nobody can kill you. Krishna wants to kill you, nobody can save you. So the devotee, he knows that. And therefore, he's not disturbed that, I can't go out on Sankirtan today. It's this, it's that, it's the other thing. It's too hot, it's too cold. This is for those whose minds are not focused. The strength of purpose comes from what? Austerity. How is Lord Brahma able to see the Lord? Prabhupada specifically mentions by austerity. And what else is? Austerity is the wealth of the Brahmanas. Why is austerity the wealth of the Brahmanas? What Why isn't gold the wealth of the Brahmanas, or ghee or something else? Why is austerity? Because by austerity, you can accomplish anything. You see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. Nothing else, not gold, not any other medium of exchange will allow you to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face within your heart. Or like Srila Prabhupada said, because he was asked, how do you see God? Prabhupada said, yeah, like closed circuit TV. He used that term, closed circuit TV. And this is direct. We have that picture in the Bhagavad Gita where you see the devotees there, and then there's a picture of Radha and Krishna in his heart, or a super soul. Can't remember which one. But that's essentially the vision, that we're cultivating. It's not artificial. We know it's a fact because we see that how the great sages and saints have so painstakingly described in such detail that, you might ignore one instance, but how can you ignore, 18,000 verses or 100,000 verses or 700 verses? That only a fool wants to set aside that preponderance of evidence, offhand because he thinks, no, I don't want to believe it. I don't want to believe that the sun is going to rise tomorrow. Any fool can say something like that. But the intelligent man, he actually investigates. This is the process, atato brahma jigyasa. Now that we're in the human form of life, you have to wake up. Jeev jago, jeev jago. So this is not just waking up at 3:30 in the morning and ringing the bell, but it's waking up to our eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord and everything that entails, which is extensive in one sense. It's very simple. We see that the Krishna is attracting, the gopis with the sound of his flute. And we're being attracted by the poetic words of the Srimad Bhagavatam. If one's a little sensitive and he's reading, he feels his mind is attracted to this literature. He feels it. It's not, otherwise, how can we continue to read it? Not just once, but twice or thrice, like this. And every time you read it, it's fresh. It's not hackneyed. There's newer and newer realizations as one advances in his own, what do you want to call it? Transcendental realization. There's no other way to put it. How do such things take place? What's that verse? Tada rajas tamo bhavo kama lobhadayas chaye chet eternabidam stitvam satvam prasidate. Because we're actually becoming purified. We're rising to the level of the mode of goodness. Because knowledge can only be realized from the mode of goodness, which is why we have those very troublesome four regulated principles, right? Because those are the four pillars of sinful life. People will say, oh, you're just restricting yourselves. This is repression. What is repression? Krishna says in the body, Arjuna says, what is repression? So, they use so many arguments. But the fact is, it is not repression, it's liberation. Because they don't know that. When you're no longer afflicted by these things, by what's described here, these, how does the Prabhupada say that? Such a nice way. Humors, calls them humors. Humors is another word for a type of, how can you call it? Not necessarily a concept, but almost like a rasa, like a flavor. So that was interesting in that Prabhupada that he used that term, humor. So this is where we are at this particular point in time. We've gotten the mercy Pramanda Brahmate Koni Bhagavan Jeev Guru Krishna Kripai Bhai Bhakti Lata Bij. This is not an ordinary thing to have wandered throughout the universe in millions of births and somehow or other ended up here in the association of devotees. Same thing as Lord Brahma searching out the source of his creation. So we have found it. We have found the lotus flower. We have found the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that are sought after by great sages and saints, that are praised by the gopis. You know, it's not, you know, sometimes we think, and people say, lotus feet, what does that mean, you know? But it means that submissive, that ability to put oneself in the state of mind where one completely surrenders to that conception that I am a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is my constitutional nature. There is nothing above that. And if one is fixed at that conception, then everything is possible for him spiritually. Every rasa is possible once he accepts that Gopi Bhartu Pada Kamalira Das Das Anadas, who I am. This is who I am. I'm not who I thought I was. You know, I'm not. Some people have this. I forget the term they use in these coaching seminars, where you're supposed to project your vision of who you want to be, what you want to accomplish, where do you want to be in 5 years. We can do that also, you know, but every devotee should know where he should be right here in the same place at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. We don't have to have some mental mind jugglery, you know, what is that term they use? Mental gymnastics. Yeah? We avoid all this trials and tribulation. We avoid it all. You know, that is liberation. That is actually the definition of liberation. We have found what we were looking for. And so there's no need to pursue any other course. But still some people think that, no, I have to do this or I have to do that. We should only be thinking how to serve the mission of the spiritual master, whether it's by Santa Sankirtan or blood pressure Sankirtan or any other type of Sankirtan. These are all things which are meant to simply put a book into the hands of the bewildered living entity and bring him to that point where he reawakens his dormant Krishna consciousness. It's all there. Every spirit soul has it. It's all there. You know, even the so-called demons. It's there. We categorize them by their actions, but the fact is they're still spirit soul, and anybody can be changed. Anybody. And we've seen it time and time again. Who are we? I mean, you know, I'm not any special demon, you know, but yet somehow or other, you know, we were all engaged, at least speaking for myself, I was engaged in completely demonic activities. According to everything I read in the Bhagavad Gita, when as I was reading the Bhagavad Gita, I was checking all the boxes. There it is. Ishvara Hamaham Bogi Siddhaham Balavan Sukhi. I think I'm the controller. I think I'm perfect. I think I'm powerful. I think I'm happy. I think I'll kill all my enemies. And if more come, I'll kill them too. You know, this is the nature. This is everyone in the material world. This is the essence of the demonic mentality. And everyone in the material world has it. Except those devotees who have come to take shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. Because they recognize it. They see it. Like expert physicians, they see the symptoms. And if they realize, and if they start to feel some restlessness or uneasiness in their sadhana, they understand that there's a cause. You know, we know what the 10 offenses are. We know what Maya is. We know exactly, what do they say? Physician, heal thyself. Physician, heal thyself. We have to do a certain type of self-analysis in order to sometimes, you know, make an adjustment. What do they call it? A course adjustment. You know, when you're navigating, there's a slight drift depending on whatever, the currents, sea currents, air currents. So you have to do a course correction. You have to realign your vehicle. And that vehicle could be the mind. It could be an aircraft carrier. It could be a, B-52. But you require a course correction. And so that is what we do in the Association of Devotees. when we sit together and we read and we share our realizations and experiences. We examine each other, not, inimically or artificially, but we, from a friendly point of view, we see that, oh, Peru, I saw that, you're taking, just to use an example, someone may criticize this person's taking too much something that is not necessary for diet, but simply for taste. And why? What's the point? That's a none. That you're still trying to please your senses without, considering what is the detrimental aspect of simply serving your senses. One should be satisfied. This is the key. If one can be satisfied, again, that's practically speaking the definition of liberation. And he no longer has any Brahma Bhuta Prasanatmana Sochati Nakangshati. Samak Saveshu Bhuteshu. He's not lamenting, he's not hankering. And what is that? Yad Gatpat Santam Richati. He's peaceful. He's peaceful. Who can get that? Was that correct, Arjuna? I might have made it backwards. Arjuna's he's our checker. So, but nevertheless, we understand what the definition of spiritual life is. And of course, we first apply it to ourselves, and then we apply it to others. So this is probably also indicated. You have to save yourself first. If you are drowning, you cannot save another drowning man. So it's not an artificial thing that we just go out and preach for the sake of preaching because, that's what the Sankirtan leader told me to do. No, we do it out of a conviction that this is actually beneficial for everyone involved because it's the Yuga Dharma. It's the Jagya for the age. So, but again, all comes down to a few essential ingredients. Primary one being association of devotees. And we read this in every paragraph of every volume of Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. It all comes down to this association of devotees. And of course, this is not so easy in Kali Yuga. People don't want to gather and have these face these common austerities. They don't want to do it. They'll do it. What was that I just sent around in the morning? A devotees realization. 2,000 people in the subway in Ukraine. 2,000 people who prior to that event didn't even know each other, practically speaking. Now they're all in the same place with a shared experience. So this is the key here. It's a shared experience, just like what we have in the ashram. And so they have a certain camaraderie now. There's a certain familial atmosphere of helping each one another. And how is that? Because it's a natural, instinct to help one another in one sense. It's not natural to ignore, a sick or dying man on the side of the street. That's not natural. That's callous. That's a hardness of the heart, born out of, frustration and whatever, so many things. So that we don't need to have devotees. We don't need to have a war to throw us into that calamity, But we have a situation of shared experience that fosters a very an elevated consciousness, because everyone is on the same platform to a great extent, And we are able to associate with our sannyasi god brothers and other elevated souls. See, and this elevates us further, as long as we're willing to accept it. This is the key. That not to just we have to be responsible for our own sadhana. That's there. No one can. Prabhupada use the analogy: when you're flying in your airplane, another airplane can't help you. You have to fly your own plane. And that's one aspect of that. But you do have, in the form of, they have this term called wingman. When you're flying, you have a group, you have the commander, and right next to the commander is his wingman, who is watching out for him from a different angle, that because you can't, not every person can see. You know, you're focused on one thing, so the wingman watches your back. All right. So this is what we do here. We're all flying our own plane, but we have all these wingmen who are watching out for us. And we should be thankful that we have that facility. Not that I don't want you to tell me anything. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to see it. No, it doesn't. You know, we have to, this is also compassion, not always received in that mood, but if it's given in that pure attitude, then it will be beneficial. It may not be realized immediately, but then you think about it. You know, like one devotee told me one time, not one devotee, Hansarupa Prabhu, he mentioned to me, you know, we were in Vrindavan in the early days and things were very simple. There were no there was no construction, no big buildings. The Parikram Marg was not paved. You know, the Jamuna flowed, it was more or less clean. You know, it was a very nice time. But gradually things started to become congested. In one sense, due to, you know, the rising popularity of Vrindavan, due in part to our preaching. You know, and then he mentioned, he said, and this is, you know, what Prabhupada also paraphrased in many ways, Vrindavan is not a place for living, it's a place for dying. Right? And over the centuries, that's what you saw. People didn't go to Vrindavan to make money, to have a nice house, to do what you do in other places. You raise your family. Vrindavan is a place to go and at the end of your life, in order to fully absorb yourself in Krishna consciousness and go back home, back to Godhead. So, you know, if one can live in Vrindavan with that attitude, very simply, and what do they call? There were many, you see Rupa Goswami's Bhajan Kutir. What, you know, it's nobody, if I tell you, yeah, you can go to Vrindavan, but you have to live in a Bhajan Kutir. Someone will say, no, why not? I don't. I need at least 1, 2, 3 bedroom, kitchen, hall, all this. No, they don't want to live like that. So then you're not really living in Vrindavan. You're simply adjusting some material circumstances to satisfy yourself that I'm living in Vrindavan. And Prabhupada said such people, their feet don't even really touch the dust of Vrindavan. They're not really there, although they think they are geographically. But the pure devotee has a different vision, and we should try to understand what he means by that. Someone will say, no, why do you mean? I'm walking in Vrindavan every day. But are you living the Vrindavan life? That's the key. Are you living the Vrindavan life? You know, which is a very different thing. So should we read the verse again? Make sure we're somewhat on track, Arjuna. You have to be. It's because the class is going to end. Oh, great actor, my Lord, all these poor creatures are constantly perplexed by hunger, thirst, severe cold, secretion, and bile, attacked by coughing winter, blasting summer, rains, and many other disturbing elements, and overwhelmed by very strong sex urges and indefatigable anger. I take pity on them, and I am very much aggrieved for them. Any questions, comments? Concerns? Dr. Jimmy, yes.
Hare Krishna, Hansarupa Prabhu. Thank you so much for a good class. I think I'm always looking forward to just always get the repetition of these same simple concepts. Stay in the association of devotees, keep performing devotional service, and Sankirtan movement is very important. So I know that because of my Kali Yuga brain, sometimes I forget that. I think lately during this week, I've really been questioning what is service? What does it mean to serve? And I was talking with Narabhar Prabhu about it yesterday, but I was a little confused. I was thinking, I don't think I actually understand what it means to be a servant. And I hope if you could talk a little bit more about that.
Servant means to put others before yourself. I mean, that's the essence. You know, I have so many desires that I want to fulfill, perhaps, you know, according to my conception of my existing, whatever, social, spiritual status. But because I have surrendered to a spiritual master, I have that vow, tadvidi pranipatena, in exchange for his confidential knowledge, which he received due to his service attitude to his spiritual master. This parampara is only existing by this service. This is the link. It is not some, Prabhupada was describing how, you know, these, he would see these cheating yogis who would accept some disciple, and then they would charge some arbitrary amount, $25, $39, $100, like that. And then they would give some mantra, useless mantra, in the most part, not a real mantra, just some fake mantra. I mean, so it's completely cheating. That's that Dharma project of Kaitava Ocha. This is cheating, Kaitava Dharma. Called Kaitava means cheating, and Dharma means religion in the common understanding. So we ignore the common definition of servitude, which may have some negative connotations. Someone says, I'm nobody's servant. Right? That's how you talk, hear somebody say like that, I'm nobody's servant. I don't serve anybody. I just serve myself. But that's, you are a servant. You're a servant to your senses. So when I transfer that service attitude to serve the senses of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or to serve the spiritual master in a humble way, that is the definition of, at least within our framework, of being a servant. It's not a menial thing. It's not that because someone is on the altar serving the deity or someone is in the bathroom cleaning, there's no difference. It's on the absolute platform. So that's another aspect that we have to appreciate, which in the beginning may be a little tricky. All service to the spiritual master and Krishna is on the absolute platform. And therefore it is equal. And that realization will allow one to advance gradually in spiritual life, because he understands that there's no limitation, there's no restriction, there's no on service. And therefore he doesn't think this service is no good, this service is good, this service is no good. He just accepts that service which has come to him by whatever means. Could be the temple commander, could be my immediate authority, could be understanding how I have to serve all the devotees in some way in order to minimize my false ego. Right? Trinadapi sunichena tarapi sahishana. This is key, to become lower than the straw in the street, to offer all respects to others. So don't fret so much about the definition. But follow the examples of the devotees who you see. What are they doing? All of them are serving. Everything that's being done is serving. When they're going out, when they're putting together the Sankirtan cart, when they're counting the books, this is all service. There's nothing mundane about anything being done in the temple. That's the definition of being in the temple. It's why we're here. There's nothing mundane. Does it, pick up something off the floor and you deposit in the trash? That's absolute service on the same level as serving the deity. So this is the facility that we've been given, and that's why we have to take care of it. And as difficult as it may seem, there's a certain by satisfying, it says the spiritual master, then we become satisfied. Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasadam. So we're saying these things every day. We have to try to incorporate them into our consciousness and our realization, and that so that it's not that I have to constantly beat myself to remember that I have to do this, I have to do that. No, It develops as it's developing this natural spontaneity, one no longer has the misgivings associated with, forced material conceptions. They go away. It becomes natural. So you want to develop that natural attitude of loving service, and that will mitigate all of your misgivings. But you have to surrender to it. You have to kind of set aside, that, wait, what about my potential? I'm young. I can finish 4 years of undergrad, then grad, then postgrad. No, these things are just phantasmagoria. There are so many people in the material world who have done this, but nobody has solved the problems of birth, death, old age, and disease, except the devotees. And we don't require any degree. So like Prabhupada told, told Sri Krishna, he says, we want doctors of the soul, doctors of the spirit. So are you ready for that?
Yes, very ready.
Okay,
Or
Bhakti
as ready
Jimmy
as I
Ki
can
Jai.
be.
And any other questions before? Yes, my dear Tulsi, spelled Tulsi.
Thank you very much, Bro. In regards to amazing method of preaching by checking the blood pressure of the people.
It's amazing. It was amazing.
So I was wondering, of course, this is a question many times discussed, but I think it's always good to discuss it again. To what extent we have to be and we can be innovative in our daily preaching activities, and to what extent we have to keep very firmly to the established already method?
No, it's a good question. There has to be a link, a common premise for the preaching, and that's to distribute books. Otherwise, why do we have books? We can just go out and talk to people on the street. Hey, where are you coming from? Well, how long are you going to engage? Prabhupada said, what can your 3 minutes talk do? Nothing. The whole idea is to give that person a book. When we were doing records, which we did also, albums, vinyl, Change of Heart, and other, they started to go off and start to make other albums. And Prabhupada saw that this is a waste of time. You're not getting, the results. You're not distributing books. We're making lots of money. There's tons of money. But you're not making devotees. And book publication was not going. Everybody was concerned about money. So the blood pressure was successful because we had an opportunity to discuss something which people would not normally share with you, that, actually I do need to change my diet. I've been feeling this or that, the other thing. And we have the solution. Here's the higher taste. And if you really want to know the source of this information, here's the Bhagavad Gita, the original text on yoga. You've heard of yoga, right? So, it can go on. But the whole idea is you just get them. It's the same as if you stop and shake their hand, or somehow you ask them where are they coming in from, or I like you look like you're a very peaceful person. You must be a model. Look at you. It's the same thing. It's not different. This line or that line. Get them to stop. And they would actually sit down, get their blood pressure, and we were doing them a service. They would understand. Wow, look at my blood pressure. That's amazing. I didn't know it was so high. Yeah, you should check it regularly. By the way, all the devotees, who are doing this, they were all healthy, young, like that. And they would say, well, what do you do? Well, we do yoga. We're vegetarians. So this is you want to be a walking advertisement. For Krishna consciousness, you want to, Vaisheshika Prabhu says, they want to see, they want what you have, whether it's knowledge, peace, health, it could be anything. But we should be examples in one sense, to the extent possible, that should be there. Any other questions, concerns? I apologize if I went off the list of things to say with regards to the purport. But there's when you read Prabhupada's purports, it's amazing how clear he makes the subject matter and his use, and we should try to emulate that and be expert, not to imitate, but to follow, and so that we can become good representatives of our spiritual master, and follow in his footsteps. Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. Huh? The thing is, when the problem is, it's Kaita Vidharma. You know why? We